Okay, good afternoon. So I come from Finland, University of Helsinki. I've just started my PhD research there, so I'm sort of a beginner, and this topic is not in the core of my research. I am actually studying the history of the concepts of prehistory and Stone Age and the furthest past and the change in the language and the concept history, and also the early archaeology done in Finland in the 18th and 19th centuries. But this subject is something that came up that I haven't thought about before until I suddenly realized how important this is, that the Stone Age structures had a very important role in the discovery of Stone Age. And this also led me to think more of all the theories surrounding structures and buildings and how they help us to contextualize time, the passing of time, and so on. Building structures, ruins, so on, they are such a significant feature in the landscape that they have always had a profound impact on people's view of the past surrounding them and the time itself. And there is also a lot of folklore related to these structures, as you can see from the name used for that type of piles of stones. So I'm going to first just go over some overall things about Stone Age megastructures and the phenomena related to them, and then discuss these giants, churches, monuments, and other similar structures, and then get to the theoretical viewpoints on the multi-temporality of architecture. Since I am not an expert on Stone Age architecture, I will not go deeper into the megalithic studies. I will just try to present some aspects of the ways they have been seen. So please don't ask me anything about the actual archaeology of these sites. So very commonly, these sort of megastructures, megalithic structures in the landscape, they have had a supernatural origin imagined for them by the people. And also not just in folklore, but also in early historiography, when they relied on textual remains, and these prehistoric structures were beyond the borders of textual past. And since they could not be fitted into the familiar text-based timeline of history, they sort of were disturbing, and they looked man-made, that at least that someone had made them. So maybe they were made by supernatural beings. Similarly, like Stone Age artifacts were thought to be thunderbolts or elf arrows. Often megalithic structures are connected to giants or some similar race that is thought to inhabit the area before humans, like the giants' churches in Finland. And these monuments in Sardinia, they are called giants' graves. And also sites that are related to megaliths, like this Ireland example, they are called something that relates to giants. And for example, in the Basque language, megaliths and other visible prehistoric sites are often called gentillari. I don't know actually how to pronounce that, or maybe like Spanish, gentillari, after the mythical race of giants that were thought to inhabit the Basque country before and alongside of humans. And some megaliths are also related in folklore to other supernatural beings, for example, fairies, like this Pierre de la Fée in Provence. I really like that. It looks like an animal or something. It's cute. So megalithic structures, for example, in Great Britain, are also commonly associated with the Druids and the Celtic heritage, a misconception that has lasted until this day. Or is it actually a misconception if we think that these structures include all the phases in their biography? They have also been there at the time of the Druids, but not built by the sort of mythological Druids. This Druidic stuff is sort of the utmost border of textually built past. So it could be extrapolated to the whole yawning years of prehistory, as Daniel says. In the Nordic countries, in the pre-19th century historiography, we did the same thing with the Vikings. So these are sort of the things that you can reach through textual sources and then think that, okay, maybe the whole yawning years of prehistory were like this because there are some evidence about that. So these are coping strategies for the old-time historians and antiquaries to deal with the discomfort and vagueness of the distant past without textual evidence. Okay. So this one large giant's church monument I'm talking about is situated there in the northern coast of Finland, and also all these structures that are called giant's churches are situated in there, in the coastal area. So they are these sort of rectangular or oval structures made of piles of stones. There is this empty space, and in the middle, and the walls are made with piling of stones. And the walls can be really like over 10 meters thick, like in this one, the Kasteli site in Rahe, but most of them are smaller. This one is the largest, so there is much more research done on this one, and also a lot more folklore related to that than the smaller ones. There are sort of doorways or openings in the walls as well, so that you can get inside the thing. And there have been, of course, some studies done on these sites that about the orientation of these things, that the structure itself, or the doorways, they are oriented towards north, south, or the sunrise on summer solstice or winter solstice and so on. And these structures are dated to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. And there are usually other sites in the vicinity of these as well. But what were they used for actually in the Stone Age? We don't know. It has been proposed that they were used to store meat or fish or something, or that they were religious structures, or that they were forts used for safety, for defense if someone attacked. But we don't actually know. And some other examples of these names of these structures in folklore, well, this is Bronze Age cairn, but they are also called goblins' sauna stoves, because they look like someone, well, he says not like goblin, it's more like an ogre, a more scarier creature, that maybe they had a sauna there and so on. And then we have some of these, I think they are called in English the City of Troy or something like that. Even though not prehistoric, from the historical time, but there is this same kind of tradition and folklore related to these as well. These labyrinths made of stones, they are found in Finland in the southern coastal area and in the archipelago. And they are also called Jatulin Tarha, which means a giant's court. So all these strange-looking structures in the landscape had been in folklore attributed to giants or other mythical beings that are thought to predate humans, so that these structures were there already when humans came to the area of Finland. Okay, so that was folklore, but this is science, early science. So different kinds of piles of stones in the landscape, or the larger megalithic stones, also attracted the attention of historians and other people researching the past already, well, during the 18th century, already before that, of course, but more scientifically in the 18th century. And first excavations done on these giant church structures or these other large cairns also were the earliest Stone Age excavations or Bronze Age excavations done in Finland. Because you can see these in landscape, you can't see settlement sites that well. In the 18th century, the view on history and the past was still tied to the biblical frame of chronology, even though it started to crumble during the century. So all these clearly man-made structures, they were thought to be of pretty recent time, because they had to be. And this started the thing with the Druids and so on. And now that we have talked about the past in the past and so on in this conference, it's interesting to study the 18th century view of the past, that they're already aiming for scientific explanations, but they live in the pre-time revolution world, so they have really, the time frame is really small for them to fit these things into that. And these structures in the landscape were sort of a reminder, like a discomforting reminder of this unknown past that was somewhere there beyond the textual evidence and so on. And all these names that people have given to these monuments or piles of stones, they remind us of this. There is this layered folklore attached to these structures that show how significant part of the landscape they have been in all times. Their original use had been long forgotten. For example, these giant churches, we don't even know today what the people were doing with them during the Stone Age. But they have been there during the whole time, and people have attached different meanings to them. So I think that, not like Levi Strauss says that animals are good to think with, where they are also good to think with, but I think buildings are good to think with. They help us to contextualize time, to make us understand the past and future and the present as well. And also to contextualize theories about time, like Fernand Brauddel's multi-layered time. If we look at these, like for example Stonehenge, we understand the longue durée is going on in there, and people are just living their lives in a different layer there. Buildings present a bridge between all layers of time, and sometimes even literally. For example, in fiction depicting time travel, sometimes there are these that you have to do the time travel thing in vicinity of some sort of monument that you know that will be there even in another time when you go there. There was also some talk about these ruins and circles of stones in the archaeology and science fiction session earlier today. And I think it's sort of the same thing, that if you think of the 18th century historians that thought that the stone structures were strange because you can't find any written evidence for them. It's sort of the same thing in horror fiction, for example, that they are scary. Somehow there is something strange going on with them that you can't reach. And still one thing that I just added, that maybe the question we should ask about the Neolithic structures is also that did their builders mean them to last this long? Did they think of the future? Like Gavin Lucas said yesterday, what was the future in prehistoric societies like? Or were some of these things just left unmoved in the stream of time by accident? Thank you.